Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hello everyone and welcome to the show. I'm Trevor Stockwell, and on today's episode I'm joined by Janine Bolon. Now Janine is a serial entrepreneur and has been since the age of 10 years old. That's impressive. She's a solopreneur, an author of 9 books so far, and about to release her 10th book. She's going to tell us a little bit about that shortly. She's also a podcaster and a mentor. Janine believes in building business models around the lifestyle that you want and not the other way around. She helps clients continually bring new clients to their business by implementing the 4-hour-a-week system that she's developed. And that's what we're going to talk about in detail in just a few moments. So welcome, Janine. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Trevor. I'm looking forward to being able to talk to people about what may be able to help them with their clients.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm sure there's lots of different things that we can all pick up. We can all improve in that area, definitely. Now, you've actually been on the show before, haven't you? And you've chatted with Yeukai, and because you also help business owners with regards to finances, financial freedom, some of the laws of finance. So for everybody listening, definitely check out the other episode. As much as I'd love to, we won't dig into that now just for time. But also, I'm very intrigued to hear about this system that you've developed. But before we start all of that, maybe just share a little bit about your journey.
Well, I started my own business at the age of 10 because I wanted candy. And my parents, being the meanies that they were and the bullies, wouldn't cough up the cash so that I could have candy. This was a problem. So my little 10-year-old brain started working on what could I do? What could I do? And it was turning and churning. And I realized that there was a fisherman's spot down the road from me. And I knew where there was a pond. And a lot of young kids know this, that if you dump water on the side of the pond bank, and put a piece of plywood or a piece of cardboard over it, night crawlers, as we call them, or earthworms will come and rise to the surface, and you can dig them out pretty easily the next day. So I started selling earthworms to a local fish shop. That's how I made my money, by the pound. I charged by the pound. And then I started raising them. And I started raising earthworms, and I started raising rabbits. And the next thing you know, I was quite the little entrepreneur with 3 different areas of revenue. And then it all got interrupted because I needed to go to college and get more education. But that's how I started, was selling earthworms to bait shops by the pound.
That sounds good. Yeah, I started very early with sort of paper rounds and then washing cars. I did actually remember, now that you mentioned part of your story, I do remember a few conversations with my sister where we were trying to sell like key rings and things to each other. So yeah, there's something there. But yeah, I'm not sure I started when I was 10. So that's hardcore. Well done. And obviously you've just kept building different businesses since then, really. So
Right. After that, it was a cleaning business because I got my driver's license. And so at 16, I could drive around. And we lived in a very rural area. So I wasn't in a metropolitan area where I could take public transportation. That was unheard of. That wasn't there. So I had to get to a point where I could drive. Once I was driving, I was running a cleaning business. And sometimes I would just sit and read books to people and stuff like that. And it was called J-Bon's Helping Hands. And it was a business that did so well. I remember my very first year, I had to pay $33 in taxes to the federal government. And I was like, what? I can't even vote. I can't, I was complaining to my father all the things. And then he started telling me all the things that taxes paid for. He goes, you go to the school for free. You get to drive on the roads for free. He goes, you think all that stuff is free? That's what your taxes are paying for. So that was my first hardcore economy lesson, was that first $33 check that I had to pay to Uncle Sam, as we like to say across the pond.
Yeah. So you mentioned your parents earlier. Were they not sort of entrepreneurial at all themselves? Is it literally something that started really with you within the family?
My father and mother both had full-time employment, But my dad always was a dreamer, and he always had what we call a side hack going. They didn't know that in the day, but he was kind of an inventor, and he always was looking for another way to make money. And by that, so that he could then go out and buy his, quote, as he said, his luxuries or his toys. So if he wanted something that was better, like a new car or something, he was always building another business or a side business so that he could afford to pay for that vehicle or whatever that new toy was, as he liked to say, in cash. So I learned to live very early on, very frugally, and cash only sort of basis. So we didn't have debt in my family.
It's a good principle to develop, definitely.
Yeah.
So then fast forward to last year. When was it you actually, I'm sure you've lived through the principles and tweaked them through different businesses, but the 4-hour week system, when did you first start developing that?
I probably started developing that in 2015, and I have been using it since then. And I was hired by multiple different multi-level marketing companies, so like Amway and Longevity and doTERRA and all those other sorts of products and services where they use different types of affiliates or distributors in the home to do home presentations, that sort of thing. So anybody has that multi-level marketing strategy in their product or business, I was assisting these people, number one, learn how to run their own business, because so many people that get into that kind of it's not technically a franchise, but anybody who gets into that kind of a business doesn't understand what it's like to run your own business, because they've usually been employed by a company or been employed by a state agency or a federal agency. So they don't really know how to run their own business. So back in 2015, 2016, I was hired by a lot of these MLMs, as we call them, to help them educate their affiliates, to help them educate their distributors. And so I really loved it. And so I was always having to take, some people would say, very complicated systems, but to me, the more complicated your system is for your business, the higher the risk of failure. So I would always say, we need to make this so surprisingly simple that you can explain it in middle school, and if they can understand it, then you have about the right level of technology and complication to make it viable for your company.
There is a tendency, isn't there, where we think if it's not complicated, it's obviously not very good or effective. But actually, that's not usually the case, is it? Usually something that's complex, we spend so much time trying to maintain it, trying to learn it, then trying to develop it and scale it, and it just doesn't make sense a lot of the time. So yeah, I'm definitely with you on that one. So let's dig into the 4 steps, or I call them 4 steps, 4 different elements within the 4-hour week, isn't there?
Okay, well, first I'm going to just real quickly let you know the difference between working on your business and working in your business. So English is one of those languages that, depending upon where in the world you are, it can mean totally different things. As you and I both know, an American and an English person are divided by a common language, right? I mean, we say we're speaking English to each other, but it can be so drastically. And then throw the Australians and the Canadians in, and it gets really fun very fast. So I want to bring it all together for all of us for just a minute. And that is, I was talked to a lot by very successful business owners that would say, you need to be working on your business, Janine, not working in it. I went around for, I'd say, almost 10 years having no clue what people were talking about to me. I did not understand that single change in a preposition that would make all the difference in my business. The difference is this. Let's just say that your job is to send cards in your business. That's what you do. You send cards. Let's just say that. Okay, so if you're working in your business, then that means you're sending cards. As long as you're sending cards, you are working in the business. But what does it mean to work on the business? To work on the business means you step back from being a technician. You're not the one sending cards. You're the one that is creating the vision for your company, and you're the one that is marketing and selling your services to the company. So that's where, if you're a single person, a solopreneur, as I like to say, you have to work on your business and in your business because you're doing it all, right? It's just you. So you have to spend some time of your week working in your business, actually developing the products and services and coaching, whatever it is that you do. But then you have to step back, and for 4 hours a week, you need to be working on the business so that you get additional clients coming in so you have a positive cash flow. Yes, this is the golden era, right? When you can finally have positive cash flow and consistently, that's when you know you've made it. So what are the 4 hours that you need to be spending each week? So this is just for starters. Depending upon your industry and depending upon what you need to be doing, you want to spend 1 hour a week doing nothing but prospecting. That is, you are getting to know people who you don't know. So prospecting is how many times a week are you on a Zoom call, on the phone, whatever, meeting with individuals who you have never met before. You need to constantly be refreshing the people that you know. You need to reach out to total strangers, if you will. Now, it's best if you can have referrals, but still, these are people that you don't know. And one of the things I've seen over and over again is there is a high resistance to meeting people we don't know. No offense, it's scary. It's terrifying. We're trying to go out and reach somebody that we've never met. Are you kidding me? If it's a referral, it's a little easier because I may know Bill, and Bill's a good guy and everything, and he's referred Tom. And so, I have a little bit of a safety factor, but, there's no guarantees with this conversation. Well, guess what? You need to be doing that an hour a week. So if you have a fear factor based on that, then that's the area of your business that is going to suffer the most if you're not bringing in new people. The second hour a week is you doing follow-up. So if you have reached out to these people that you don't know, or you have these referrals, or a friend has referred somebody to you, then you need to spend an hour a week reaching around to those people saying, hey, Bill told me about you, Tom. How about we get on a Zoom call together? Again, there is a huge resistance in solopreneurs in doing these two activities. And guess what? These two activities are the lifeblood of new clientele coming into your business. So when I have somebody come up to me and say, Janine, my business isn't doing very well, I don't seem to be making the money that I want, I just can't find the clients, then I say, how many hours a week are you prospecting? How many hours a week are you doing follow-up? To which I've had people say, well, I do it all the time and it doesn't work. And I said, okay, let's get down. I'm a scientist by training. So, give me the data, give me the numbers. How many people have you talked to? Well, I've talked to 20. I said, that's incredible that you've talked to 20. Come to find out, they haven't been on the phone. They haven't been on Zoom. They've been texting them on social media. Guess what? That doesn't count. That is not what we are talking about here. So that's those are the 2 hours. What's hour 3? Hour 3, you spend an hour on social media a week, and all you're doing is connecting with people. And that is, if you were talking to them last week on text, you talk to them this time on text. And your whole purpose for getting on social media and talking to groups and liking everybody's posts that you know and making comments, you only spend an hour in a week doing that. But the point of that process is to pull them off of social media and warm them up to a point where you can get on a Zoom call or you can get on a phone call with them. So that's the point of connecting. The last hour a week, and this is another area that has tremendous resistance with some solopreneurs, is train yourself. Spend an hour a week training yourself on a new piece of software, reading a business book, or, hey, how about you finally take that online course that was free that you got 30 months ago or 30 days ago, and go ahead and sign up for that. So that's the 4-hour a week system for increasing your clients. And that is 1 hour of prospecting a week, 1 hour of follow-up, 1 hour of connection time on social media, and 1 hour a week training yourself on something new. And that will keep you going.
That sounds really good. Definitely, yeah. I'm nodding and thinking through, how much of that do I do? Maybe I won't admit this on the recording. But yeah, I'm a big fan of personal development, definitely for myself, but also for clients, people that I kind of have connection with anyway. So I'm higher on that scale and less on the prospecting. Definitely, I know I am. And for everybody listening, I'm sure, pick one of those 4. Which one are you weakest at? Which one is the one that actually you think, I wish Janine hadn't mentioned that one. Let's just skip that one. I'll just do the other 3 and I'll just leave that one. It's like, no, it doesn't work, does it? There's a process, there's a step in place. I really like that. Let's dig into those a little bit more because, I'm interested, curious really to get your your view on certain bits. But I like the fact you said don't just do the texting. That doesn't count when it's reaching out, prospecting with people, because it's like, we're humans, aren't we? We are social people. We chat, we talk, we meet up with people. It's been a little bit harder this last year or so, but generally that's the way we're wired. That's how, like, you don't connect with someone just through text on a screen, do you? That maybe could be the start, but you're not going to build a proper relationship that way, I think. Or maybe I don't know, maybe that's just the way I look at it as well. But it's that human connection, isn't it? I don't want to do business with people that I never meet. Just personally, I don't think it's a good way to build a relationship. So I like the fact that it's the reaching out, getting the video call or the phone call to start with. That way you really get to know people. It's also a case where you're not likely to be misread or misunderstood. You can put something in a text, maybe something that you would find funny or that you think would be funny to the other person, but depending when they read it, if they're having a bit of a bad day, or they've just come out of a stressful meeting and then they're not ready to read the message, and then they could easily pick it the wrong way, and then that's closed the door that potentially could be a client and a healthy relationship for you both. So I totally understand that, and definitely agree with it. From the prospecting side of it, let's start with that one, because it's the first one, and as you say, it's probably the one that we struggle with the most, because we don't like being uncomfortable, do we? It's like, no, just give me stuff that feels good, that I like doing, that I know I'm good at. And I'll avoid the other things, let somebody else do that. But really, particularly solopreneurs, but the business owner, if you're representing your company, it's basically you, isn't it? You're the individual that's the spearhead. You're the focal point. You're the brand to a large extent, particularly for everyone that's listening as well. I'm sure they're nodding, they understand where we're coming from. So you have to then sell yourself or promote yourself one way or another. But there's good ways of doing it and not so good ways of doing it, isn't there? And I would be curious to get your perspective on maybe one or two tips of a good way to prospect, a good way to reach out to potential clients.
So I'm going to give you 3 tips on that. The first one is, when you get ready to do a prospecting call of some kind, empty your mind of the fact that you're trying to make money. Empty your mind that you have a mortgage bill or a rent check to do. Empty your mind of all your bills and just spend time with that person. If they so much as get a moment where they're thinking, okay, they're getting ready to sell me now, then you're in the wrong place. You're into leadership and you do a lot of work with the John Maxwell and stuff like that. You're very good at what you do when it comes to leadership training, self-development. And so one of the things when you're mentoring, the last thing you want to do is turn somebody off because you're going to sell them right off the bat. You don't do that. When you're getting ready to have a friend, like you see somebody who you're a little bit interested in and you want to have that friend, and you kind of warm up to them a little bit. And so that's relationship marketing at its best. And I know that term's been bandied about a lot, but if you really look at successful people throughout history, they created very strong relationships. Then they went into the business part of the relationship. And so that's one of the things I like to chat with people about, is that when you get ready to do prospecting, my hour a week, it's like I'm excited because I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do my hour of prospecting. Why? I'm going to meet a whole bunch of people that are my future friends. They just don't know it yet. Yeah. Now, once I get on that Skype call or Zoom call, video call, whatever it is, once I get on there, we can kind of tell if there's a good fit or not right off the bat. One of the beautiful things, though, is that there have been people I've gotten on a video call like 3 or 4 years previous, and it wasn't good timing, but yet they cycle back around me because of my systems of follow-up, because of my systems of connection. I don't drop them. I continue to kind of stay in their life. Once a month, you're going to see something from me. And because of that system that I have in place, they reach back around to me because I'm one of those people that they can count on, because I have consistently stayed in a connection with them. They know I'm not a one and done type of person. I don't see people as disposable. products, some services, yes, but not people. People to me I highly cherish them, and they will pick up on that very quickly. So that's the very first tip I'll give you when it comes to prospecting. You are dealing with the most valuable resource on the planet. Now, I know some people will disagree with me. That's fine. That's your right. But I'm just saying that when I have a person on a video call, I don't have anything else going through my head. I am totally present with that person. Why? Because I came to this planet to serve. I came to this planet to help, not be a part of the problem. Okay. And so that is why you're an entrepreneur. That's why you're a business owner. That's why you're listening to this podcast, because you know you have a similar purpose. And that is, yes, you want to make a living. Yes, you want to make profit, but you're really here to make the world a better place. And so I say, thank you for listening to this show, and make sure you prospect with that same very idealistic, because, you know, people will bust on you about being an idealistic person, but thank you for being idealistic and for demanding that the universe pay you what you're worth, because you're trying to make the world a better place. So thank you for all that. So that's tip number one. Tip number two. Tip number two when it comes to prospecting. Janine, I don't want to reach out to people I don't know. Well, you have a bunch of business cards sitting in a shoebox in your closet, right? Guess what? We just went through this incredible world event. We're still in the midst of it. So why don't you dig out all those business cards? I guarantee you, if you have a business card, you've met that person. You've had a point in your life where you've met them. So dig out the business cards. Number one, find out if they're still in business. Number two, find out what they're doing now. Number three, see if they are well and see if you can do anything to help them. So dig out all those business cards. That's prospecting. Okay? That's going out and just making sure the world is in a good place. Tip number three, make sure that when you are prospecting, that you are listening. Now, this is easy for people who are introverted. People who are introverted, they almost have a part of their personality that's like, observe and I will report later. I will observe what's happening in the world, in the room, and I will report back to you later after I've processed that. But then for those of you who are more extroverted, just remember that yes, you do want to share your story to warm the other person up, to let them know, hey, I'm willing to release to you some pretty intimate details of what's happened to me recently. I'm not talking about too much information, but I'm like, be a human, right? Let them know life isn't always great for me. Like these people that you talk to, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing great. How are you doing? I'm like, currently my life kind of sucks because I want to mail books to England and I can't because the English government told me my books are too freaking heavy. So I'm having to cut my books down to 100 pages so I can get them to my people I care about across the pond, right? So I let people know what's going on with that. I'm not talking about intimate details that you don't want to share, but let them know where you're struggling in your business, because you know what? They may just happen to have a suggestion that's going to solve your problem, and then they feel good, and you have a problem that's solved. So keep this all kind of in mind, that when you get on a prospecting call, the very first time you are talking to them, your only goal is to make sure that you set up the next call. And when you get on to them the second time, your only goal is to make sure you get on a call the third time. And they're going to ask you this question. Oh, because they're going to get real uncomfortable, right, Trevor? You're really good at listening. You're so good at listening. And they're going to get uncomfortable. They're like, okay, Trevor, tell me, what do you do for a living? That's a sucker question. Don't answer it. You're on a prospecting call. Don't answer it. You say, you know, I am more than willing to tell you a little bit about me. I help some people with debt-free living and I assist solopreneurs. But really what I want to do is talk about you and then ask them a question. They're only asking you to be polite because they realize they've hogged most of the conversation because Trevor is a good listener. And then they get embarrassed. And so they're just trying to get over their embarrassment. Let them know, no, I'm listening because I'm interested. I'm curious. I want to know you as a person. You can get to know me later. And this helps solve the problem of them thinking you're trying to sell them right out of the gate. So do those 3 points help?
Definitely. Yes. Yeah. And I think a lot of it's like if we approach business a lot more from the perspective of, like Yeukai does this a lot. And I've learned some of the elements I'm going to share. Well, I won't share them all now, but he's helped me see this as well from a perspective of, it's more about helping the other person first. I mean, it's easy to get mixed up in in the branding, the marketing. I need to tell people what I do. I need to tell them about my services, otherwise they'll never buy the product, service, whatever. But it's like, no, actually, if you can help them get what they want, is it Jim Rohn, somebody, then eventually you'll get what you want. And I think a lot of it is that you said about, you pay it forward, really. Not in those words, but yeah, I know where you're coming from with that. And I think that's a lot of it. I think it's easy to get tripped into talking about me before you find out what is it that, what are you struggling with? What is it that either I can help you with, or maybe I might know somebody else that can help. Maybe I'm not going to sell you anything, but maybe I can link you with somebody that can really meet whatever it is you need at the point. I like that. And I think it's good. It's good to be reminded of it. But also, just if we're not thinking that way, just to shift the perspective more that first and foremost, yeah, human to human, what's going on? Is there something that maybe down the road we can work together on? If not, hey, I still want to talk to you. You have to balance how much you invest in everyone. I realize that. But I like what you're saying, because it comes back to the fundamental of valuing an individual for who they are first, not whether they can buy anything from you or not, which is, I really like that. I could easily go off on a tangent on that, but let's not, because that's really good. I like what you're sharing. I know that everybody listening, if you're taking notes, then make sure you capture those points. If you're not taking notes, start taking notes and listen to it again, because these are very practical steps, but they're really useful and they work. You've proved that they've worked for you and for the clients that you help as well. So yeah, I appreciate all of this. Tell us a little bit more. So following up, what would be a good, we've had 1, 2, maybe 3 calls, 3 conversations. What would be a good strategy? Strategy sounds a bit, I don't know, maybe that's not the best word to use, but how could you then take it a little bit further, assuming that they are a good match, you feel there's good chemistry there? Do you have a particular, once we've chatted 3 times, then I'll share a little bit more about what I do? Or is it more just a natural, how specific are you, is what I'm trying to say, I suppose.
Right?
The sales.
Yeah. Well, the thing is this. I get on the call, and the first time I chat with somebody, I'm taking copious amounts of notes, and they see me doing that on the video calls. And when I'm looking down, I always say I'm taking notes because I don't want to forget, especially when you said. And so I'm constantly using psychological markers or psychological sentences that are letting them know I am actively listening to what they're saying. This will make some people a little uncomfortable because they're like, wait a minute, what do you mean you're taking notes? And I always go, because I'm a mother of 4 children and my brain isn't what it used to be. Ha ha ha, right? Use a little of your humor. Let people know who you are as a person. So I'm like, I don't remember everything like I used to. And then, of course, then I get to hear about their life because they tell me how they don't remember things like they used to either. And so the second call, they will then really start to be very curious about who is this person that keeps wanting to follow up with me and contact me. So in the second call, I have a little thing that I will share with them, like, oh, I'm an author, or I'm a podcaster, or I do online courses, or I do mentoring. I will connect with them on some way, but I'll make sure that it's in a way that is helpful to them. So just today, right before I got on here, I was chatting away with somebody I have not connected with in over 18 months. And we were very excited to be able to be on a video call together. And I found out that while the world was in pandemic, this person's world was being thrown upside down. Not to get into any details, but she did share, and she shared nonstop for 20 minutes. She really needed to talk to somebody. So after she was done, I could tell she was in no way in any position for me to be able to do anything for her because there were too many variables in her life that nothing was landing. So until she had some of that land, she's not going to be able to purchase from me, or I'm not even going to be able to help her. There's too much. So I set it up. I said, so when can I reach back around to you? And she goes, you know what? I'll be settled. I'll have been moved. Everything will be taken care of probably around August 25th. I said, how about I reach out to you? And I always extend the time because people are very positive, right? They want to connect with you again. So they'll shorten the time. I'll always give an extra 2 weeks. I said, how about the first week of September? Or how about the second week of September? And they're like, yeah. And that's a gift. You've given them the gift of time. You have immediately shown with that psychological technique, you have immediately shown them that I care about you, just in case things don't go as perfectly as our rose-colored glasses are telling us it's going to go. You have an extra 2 weeks on my part. All right. Giving them that fortnight is very helpful. And so that's how I always phrase it. By the time we're on the third call, they're really demanding. They get pretty demanding about, so tell me what it is you do, Janine. Tell me what, and you want them at that point, right? You want them like really wanting to drag that out of you. And one person even said to me, okay, look, you made me, this was funny, you made me talk for 2 hours about myself on the last 2 calls. I want to hear about you. Tell me about yourself, because I've been researching you, right? Isn't that great? I've been researching you. You've got all this stuff. You have all these books. Oh my God, when do you sleep? Right? And that's the perfect place to have somebody. They are researching you. You're not chasing after them. And that's the power. So don't even think about selling to anybody until that third call. And if you work your first 2 video calls or phone calls correctly, they'll be wanting to serve you in some way or help you in some way. Many times these calls do not end up with them purchasing anything from me. They end up asking me on their podcast, having me talk to their community that they have online. I've had people get me on television shows just because I never sold to them. And so this is not the way to make a fast buck. Okay, what I am sharing with you, this is, you're playing the long game. If you are doing something that you know you're supposed to do to the day you die, and I tell people, I will be doing this, I will be teaching these systems until I can no longer speak and I'm in a specialized wheelchair. I think Stephen Hawking at this point, but it's like, I will be doing this the day I die because this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my life's work. If you are in that place, don't you dare give up just because things aren't working out for you with the first year or the second year or the third year. It's not that something's wrong. It's just you need to get known and you're playing the long game. So you know how that works. Just make sure that you realize, well, I'm going to be doing this for the next 20 years. Might as well have some fun with it. What are we doing today?
Yeah, that's a really good approach. You're right. And it is, once we find the thing that, presumably everyone that's listening that's in business, they're in business with something that they're passionate about. And I think if you're not, you should really think about where you are and where you want to go. But yeah, if you're passionate about something, you'll do it to a large extent, even when there isn't any money. Obviously, you need to pay the bills and things like that as well. You have to be practical. But the key driver is not the amount of money that they get. The key driver is, this is what I'm on the planet to do. This is how I can give back, isn't it? I think is the way you put it as well. I really like that. We have sort of almost run out of time. I guess one of the big things, I think, or one of the big challenges, just from what you've shared, as we've dug into the first 2, is more, are we going to allow ourselves to get out of the comfort zone and actually reach out to people, but reach out not from the perspective of how can they help me, how can I help them? I think that's the key thing. Maybe that's the easy way to shift our perspective from suddenly feeling about us and how we're going to pitch and how we're going to sell. It's like, no, find out about the individual first. And then the key thing, as you said, is make sure you follow up, isn't it? If you say you're going to ring, for whatever date, make sure you're consistent and you do that. Because if you're not reliable in the first couple of conversations, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to think that you're reliable as well. And also, if you have the couple of detailed conversations initially, you're then better positioned to be able to talk about how you can help them. Initially, you might not really know how to explain what you do in a way that they need to hear it. And yeah, if you can't help them, don't just cut them off, is it? It's just keep the connection there somehow. It may be that you know somebody that you can refer them to. They may know other people that are your target market, your ideal customer as well. And if you've built the relationship because of who they are, not just because you want to try and sell them something, then who knows where it can lead. And if it doesn't lead anywhere, you've had a positive influence on somebody else. And yeah, I think what you put out there does come back to you in greater measure. So totally agree with all of that. I think I've talked to you for a good few hours before yeah, we run out of things to say. But for now, let's wrap this up just because of time. So you mentioned your book is literally almost off the press now, isn't it?
Yes, that's the author podcasting. But for this particular group of people, I wanted to let you know I do have a free book. I do ask you to pay shipping, okay? And that's why I was mentioning that I actually struggled because originally it was too long and I couldn't get it into customs. So it's now down to 100 pages. You can read it. Yes, you could get it electronically, free on Kindle. But if you go and get the Thriving Solopreneur, you can go to my website, and it's JanineBolon.com/free book. All I do is I ask you to pay the cost and, taxes. It's always that taxes. Yeah. But I ask you just to pay the cost. You will only hear from me about once a month, okay, if you sign up for all that. But what I'm doing is I really am just trying to get the book in your hands because I'm quite the bibliophile. I absolutely love having a 3-dimensional book that I can, work between my fingers and I can smell the ink. And I like to take copious amounts of notes, and I still haven't found anything that's digital that takes the place of a book. So I do want to send a free book to your people, to anyone who is listening, and I want you to be successful. So my dear podcast listeners, I want you to be successful because I think what makes countries strong is entrepreneurship. When we are no longer able as individuals of specific countries to be able to run businesses of our own, that's where I see the economy of business of countries going down the tubes, because innovation and creativity is shut down at that point. And so that's why I have an interest in helping solopreneurs thrive.
Brilliant. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. Thanks for everything that you've shared on that. It's certainly got me thinking more. I will listen to this again as well, just because it's just so key to really embrace the right elements, of the right behaviors to then reach out to people as well. And just you've put it in such a simple way that, okay, 4 things, I can track that within a week. I can see where I am, and then the following week you just start again and you work through it, don't you? So I like things that are simple but effective.
Me too. Otherwise, if it's too complicated, my mommy brain, it doesn't work.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you for what you've shared, and thanks for offering the book like you have as well. There will be a link for everybody listening. There'll be a link to the website below, so click through to that. By all means, get a copy of the book. Check out what Janine does as well. She talks about finances as well. Check out the other episodes she's done with us. She spoke with Yeukai. But make sure you put the things that Janine is sharing into action. If we don't, we just lose out. We don't benefit from them. They just die. We move on, and we're no further forward. We don't change. We believe that you can change. You're listening to this podcast, so you want to change. You're already successful because you're listening. You're taking time to listen to this. So just make sure you take the actions, the practical steps. And when it feels slightly uncomfortable, just remind yourself that's a good sign, because it means I'm growing, it means I'm moving into a new area. So I'm making opportunities for new things to come. Anyway, Janine, please come back at some point. Let's talk some more, definitely.
It'd be my pleasure.
For now, we do need to wrap it up. So thank you for your time again today. Really appreciate that. And for everybody listening, we will catch you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yeukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.